Hello and welcome to one more session, and we have the medicine bag. But before we start the story, kindly download and install so that you can get access to all the free material, especially the PPTs or the PDFs that we use in the sessions. तो पूरा आप use कर सकते हैं अपने answer writing के लिए. All right, about the author, the medicine bag, very emotional story. How a granddad pays a visit to his grandchildren and what the grandchildren feel, and I'm full of emotions actually. So Virginia Driving Hawksneve was a renowned Native American author, educator, and historian of Lakota Sioux heritage. She wrote numerous books on Native American history, culture, poetry, and fiction, with a special focus on preserving the traditions of Sioux people. Her literary contributions earned her widespread recognition, including the prestigious National Humanities Medal. Through her works, she sought to educate young readers about indigenous culture, जो natives थे उनका culture, and ensure that Native American history and heritage were remembered and respected. So जो भी इनके traditions थे, जो भी culture था, they were understood by the people and they were preserved. Theme of the story, as I said, a granddad pays a visit to his grandchildren in the town. The central theme of the medicine bag is the importance of cultural heritage, family traditions, and identity. All right, so now you have the cultural heritage, family traditions, and identity. Through Martin's relationship with his grandfather, the story shows that one should take pride in one's roots instead of feeling embarrassed by them. वो बच्चा है, he initially feels embarrassed just by the look of his grandfather when he visits and how the other kids kind of respond. The medicine bag symbolizes the family's history, values, and Native American heritage, reminding Martin of his responsibility to preserve and honor his ancestors' legacy. Another important theme is respect for elders and the passing of traditions from one generation to the next. Grandfather actually उससे एक medicine bag जो गले में बांध के रखते हैं छोटा सा, वो pass on करते हैं. So उसकी story है ये. Martin initially feels ashamed of his grandfather, but gradually comes to admire his wisdom, dignity, and deep respect for tradition. By accepting the medicine bag after his grandfather's death, Martin embraces his cultural identity and realizes the importance of preserving his family's customs for future generations. So basically, preservation of culture, heritage, passing it on to the next generation, and having pride in one's family and culture. ये theme है हमारी story की. And I think now we can get down to reading the story. All right. Again, an amazing pic the people have drawn. My kid sister, Cheryl, and I always bragged about our Sioux grandpa. Bragged, boast karna. About our Sioux grandpa, Joe Iron Shell. So, ये again Indian American ट्राइब की बात कर रहे हैं. ग्रैंडपा जो आयरन शेल, इनका नाम है जो आयरन शेल. आवर फ्रेंड्स who had always lived in the city and only knew about Indians from movies and TV were impressed by our stories. तो ये बच्चे हैं, अपनी सिस्टर की बात कर रहा है और बोल रहा है कि हम लोग अपने ग्रैंडपा की कहानियां सुना के औरों को impress करते थे. The kids who were always in the city and never they did not know much about the Indian Americans. They knew only what the TV and the movies showed. Maybe we exaggerated, बढ़ा चढ़ा के बताया. All right, and made grandpa and the reservation sound glamorous. But a reservation was, those chunks of land where the American Indians were established by the government of the US under protection. एक तो उनका लैंड तो खैर ले ही लिया था, फिर उन्हीं को उनके लैंड का एक एरिया देके वहां पे वो रहा करते थे. Okay, so that was the reservation land. Okay, and made grandpa and the reservation sound glamorous. But when we would return home to Iowa after our yearly summer visit to grandpa, we always had some exciting tale to tell. तो जब भी वहां से लौटते थे अपने ग्रैंडपा के घर से वेकेशंस के बाद, तो they had something or the else to share with other kids. We always had some authentic Sioux article to show our listeners. और कुछ of course grandpa के घर से कुछ लाते भी होंगे तो दिखाते थे वहां से कि देखो ये authentic चीज लाए हैं. One year, Cheryl had new moccasins. Moccasins बेटा shoes हो गए, ठीक है? That grandpa had made. On another visit, he gave me a small, round, flat, rawhide drum which was decorated with a painting of a warrior riding a horse. He taught me a real Sioux chant to sing while I beat the drum with a leather-covered stick that had a feather on the end. और ड्रमिंग, मोकैसन्स हो गए, शूज हो गए, ड्रम लेके आए और उसको सिखा, उन्होंने एक हिम भी दिया था और उसको सिखाया भी ड्रम के साथ कैसे गाएं, चैंट करें एटलीस्ट. We never showed our friends grandpa's picture. हाँ, कहानियां बहुत सुनाई, but we never showed our friends grandpa's picture. Not that we were ashamed of him, but because we knew that the glamorous tales we told didn't go with the real thing. ऐसा नहीं था कि grandpa को लेके ashamed थे, but इतना exaggerate करके कहानियां सुनाई गई थी. They just did not fit in with the picture. So they never showed grandpa's picture to friends. Our friends would have laughed at the picture because grandpa wasn't tall and stately like TV Indians. So 6 feet dignified Indians. तो grandpa ऐसे लंबे चौड़े नहीं थे. His hair wasn't in braids. Braids जैसे if you see some of the footballers, braids बना रखे हैं, ठीक है? हाँ. His hair wasn't in braids but hung in stringy gay strands on his neck, and he was old. So stories probably सब यूथ की सुनाई जा रही हैं, व्हाट अ ग्रेट वॉरियर एंड पर्सन ही वाज, बट एज ऑफ नाउ ग्रैंडपा की अगर पिक्चर आप देखें तो फ्रेल एंड ओल्ड हो चुके थे. ही वाज आवर ग्रेट ग्रैंडफादर एक्चुअली, बट ही डिडंट लिव इन अ टिपी. टिपी एक टेंट हो गया उस तरह से, बट ऑल बाय हिमसेल्फ इन अ पार्ट लॉग पार्ट तार पेपर शैक. शैक सॉर्ट ऑफ झोपड़ी मान लेते हैं उसको, ठीक है, ऑन द रोजबर्ड रिजर्वेशन इन साउथ डकोटा. So he stayed on the Rosebud Reservation in South Dakota. So not a very fancy accommodation. ठीक है, बस रह रहे. So when Grandpa came to visit us, I was so ashamed and embarrassed, I could have died. अब Grandpa की problem नहीं है. Grandpa told them the stories. These fellows they exaggerated. So जब वो सच्चाई सामने आ रही कि Grandpa तो tall भी नहीं है and वो टेंट में चलो नहीं बट एक झोपड़ी नुमा कहीं accommodation में रह रहे हैं on the reservation, जब ये सच्चाई सामने आने की बारी आई, so Martin felt absolutely embarrassed and ashamed. There are a lot of ippy poodles and other fancy little dogs in our neighborhood. तो काफी सारे dogs हैं इनके neighborhood में. अपने घर की बात बता रहा है, मोहल्ले की बात बता रहा है. But they usually barked singly at the mailman from the safety of their own yards. और लेकिन ये ऐसा नहीं था कि दिन भर भौंकते रहते थे. जब मेलमैन आता था तो प्रॉब्ली अपने यार्ड से they started barking. Now, it sounded as if a whole pack of mutts, these dogs, were barking together in one place. और अभी एक दिन की बात बता रहा है कि आज ऐसा लग रहा है कि ये सारे के सारे एक जगह खड़े होके बात कर रहे हैं, अपने यार्ड से बाहर प्रॉब्ली आ गए हैं. But together, were barking together in one place. I got up and walked to the curb to see what the commotion was. Commotion, the chaos, afra-tafri. You can figure out the scene from this one. About a block away, I saw a crowd of little kids yelling with the dogs yipping and growling around someone who was walking down the middle of the street. और इनको एक ब्लॉक दूर दिखाई पड़ा कि कोई बंदा है जो सड़क के बीचों बीच चल रहा है. He is not walking on the sides. And the dogs and the little kids have surrounded and they are all yelling and growling and barking. I watched the group as it slowly came closer and saw that in the center of the strange procession, ये जो प्रोसेशन चल रहा है, बीच में एक बंदा है और ओल्ड मैन एंड बाकी सब घेर के चल रहे हैं. प्रोसेशन वाज अ मैन wearing a tall black hat. He would pause now and then to peer at something in his hand, to kind of look at something in his hand, and then at the houses on either side of the street. तो एक हाथ में कुछ देखते थे और फिर maybe he was searching the address. Yeah. I felt cold and hot at the same time. Embarrassment, anxiety. And as I recognized the man, oh no, I whispered, it's grandpa. और finally, जो grandpa की image ने छुपा के रखी थी, अब नहीं हो सकती थी because grandpa had walked down to his place. I stood on the curb, unable to move even though I wanted to run and hide. Then I got mad when I saw how the yippy dogs were growling and nipping at the old man's baggy pant legs and how wearily he poked them away with his cane. And old man थे तो बहुत एनर्जी से तो छड़ी नहीं चला सकते थे, तो अपनी केन से बेचारे धीरे धीरे उनको भगाने की कोशिश कर रहे थे. Stupid mutts, I said as I ran to rescue grandpa. Now even though he's embarrassed and ashamed, but he loves his grandpa, so he runs towards his grandpa to kind of rescue him from these dogs. When I kicked and hollered, yelled, shouted, When I kicked and hollered at the dogs to get away, they put their tails between their legs and scattered. तो वो अपनी दुम पैरों के बीच में दबा के भाग गए, which means they got scared and they ran away. The kids ran to the curb where they watched me and the old man. और जो बच्चे थे वो कब पे जाके खड़े हो गए और वहां से वो मुझे और मेरे ग्रैंडपा को देख रहे. Grandpa, I said, and felt pretty dumb. When my voice cracked, I reached for his beat up old tin suitcase. Tin का suitcase है, beat up old माने very 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 old, which was tied shut with a rope. But he set it down right in the street and shook my hand. How tahoza grandchild. He greeted me formally in Sioux. तो ये Sioux language है. Greet किया उन्होंने अपना suitcase नीचे रख के. All I could do was stand there with the whole neighborhood watching and shake the hand of the leather brown old man. और जब grandpa ने हाथ आगे बढ़ाया तो ये भी क्या करते, हाथ मिलाया. I saw how his grey hair straggled from under his big black hat, which had a drooping feather in its crown. और उस hat में एक drooping झुका हुआ feather भी था. His rumpled black suit hung like a sack over his stooped frame. Now he's frail. So frame जो है उनकी जो walk है वो stooped है, तो उसके ऊपर सूट जैसे एक बोरे की तरह लटका हुआ है. As he shook my hand, his coat fell open to expose a bright red satin shirt, और bright red satin shirt पहनी हुई है, with a beaded bolo tie under the collar, और collar के नीचे एक beaded tie. His getup wasn't out of place on the reservation, but it sure was here, and I wanted to sink right through the pavement. और वो जो कपड़े पहन के आए थे वो रिजर्वेशन में तो कॉमन है, नॉर्मल है, चलता है, यहाँ पे नहीं. और मेरी इच्छा हुई दैट धरती फट जाए और मैं उसमें समा जाऊं. सिंह, इतना एम्बैरेसमेंट इनको लग रहा है इस समय. Hi, I muttered with my head down. I tried to pull my hand away when I felt his bony hand trembling and looked up to see fatigue in his face. हाथ हटाया क्योंकि उनका हाथ कांप रहा था ग्रैंडपा का, एंड चेहरे पे बिल्कुल फटीग, थकान. I felt like crying. I couldn't think of anything to say. So I picked up Grandpa's suitcase, took his arm, and guided him up the driveway to our house. Now, at this point, the grandchild doesn't know what to say. So he simply picks up the suitcase and walks Grandpa to their house. Mom was standing on the steps. I don't know how long she had been waiting, watching, but her hand was over her mouth and she looked as if she could not believe what she saw. Then she ran to us. Now this was a surprise actually. Grandpa didn't inform that he was coming. So mom might have been looking from the door what was happening on the street, and she was pleasantly, emotionally probably surprised. Grandpa, she gasped. How in the world did you get here? Yahan pahunche kaise? I mean, she was shocked. She checked her move to embrace Grandpa, and I remembered that such a display of affection is unseemly to the Sioux and would embarrass him. Now, in certain cultures, getting a hug is not a problem, but maybe with American Indians and the Sioux tribe, it was not such a good thing to do. So mom checked her step, and she wanted to run and hug the grandpa, but then she checked herself. How, Marie? He said as he shook mom's hand. She smiled and took his other arm. As we supported him up the steps, the door banged open and Cheryl came bursting out of the house. She was all smiles and was so obviously glad to see Grandpa that I was ashamed of how I felt. Now the young sister, 10-year-old, she came running, full of energy and full of joy, delight. Seeing the Grandpa, on seeing the sister react in that manner, Martin felt ashamed of how he felt embarrassed when he saw Grandpa walking down the street. Grandpa, she yelled happily, you came to see us. Grandpa smiled and Mom and I let go of him as he stretched out his arms to my 10-year-old sister who was still young enough to be hugged. So mom could not hug. But this kid, 10-year-old, she was still young enough to be embraced. Listen, Kala, little girl, he greeted her and then collapsed. He was an old man, he was tired, he was traveling. So he simply collapsed. He had fainted. Mom and I carried him into the sewing room where we had a spare bed. After we had Grandpa on the bed, Mom stood there helplessly patting his shoulder. Mom didn't know what to do because old man has fainted. Ab kya kare? Shouldn't we call the doctor, Mom? I suggested, since she did not seem to know what to do. And then the kid suggests, Mom, it's better we call the doctor because we can't figure out what to do. Yes, she agreed with a sigh. You make Grandpa comfortable, Martin. Now, ab naam pata chala, bacche ka naam hai Martin. I reluctantly moved to the bed. Reluctantly, not with any great kind of intention. मतलब थोड़ी झिझक के साथ. I knew Grandpa would not want to have Mom undress him, but I didn't want to either. He was so skinny and frail, so skinny and weak that his coat slipped off easily. When I loosened his tie and opened his shirt collar, I felt a small leather pouch this is the medicine bag that we are talking about. A small leather pouch that hung from a thong around his neck. एक धागे नुमा चीज से वो बंधा हुआ था. I left it alone and moved to remove his boots. The scuffed old cowboy boots, पुराने घिसे हुए types, were tight and he moaned. He made a sound as I put pressure on his legs to jerk them off. I put the boots on the floor and saw why they fit so tight. Each one was stuffed with money. Shoes में money रख के लाए थे, तो obviously वो tight हो चुके थे. I looked at the bills that lined the boots and started to ask about them, but Grandpa's eyes were closed again. He was an old man, tired man, so आंखें खुली फिर बंद हो गईं. Mom came back with a basin of water. The doctor thinks Grandpa is suffering from heat exhaustion. गर्मी लग गई है, ठीक है? She explained as she bathed Grandpa's face. Mom gave a big sigh. Oh, Martin, how do you suppose he got here? What do you think? How did he get here? We found out after the doctor's visit. Grandpa was angrily sitting up in bed while Mom tried to feed him some soup. He didn't want Martin's mom to feed him. He's so dignified. He might have felt kind of embarrassed. Maybe he wanted to consume or have the soup himself. We found out, okay, tonight you let Murray feed you, Grandpa, spoke my dad, who had gotten home from work just as the doctor was leaving. You are not really sick, he said, as he gently pushed Grandpa back against the pillows. Resting position mein laaye. The doctor said, you just got too tired and hot after your long trip. तो बहुत दूर से चले आ रहे हैं, तो थक चुके थे और maybe dehydration भी हो गया. Grandpa relaxed, and between sips of soup, he told us of his journey. अब journey क्या है? Soon after our visit to him, Grandpa decided that he would like to see where his only living descendants lived and what our home was like. Besides, he admitted sheepishly, थोड़े embarrassment के साथ बोला, he was lonesome after we left. Now this is the tragedy of old people. In this modern world, the system that society has come up with, most of us leave our houses and do our jobs in separate in different cities from the one we were born in. So the oldies, they get left at home all alone. At least now you can make a video call and have a conversation. But even that is not sufficient. Old people, they feel very, very, very lonely. So that was the case with Grandpa. And that is why he said that I just wanted to come down and meet you all and see where you live. I knew everybody felt as guilty as I did, especially Mom. Mom was all Grandpa had left. तो उनके descendants में से सिर्फ Mom ही थी. So we all felt very guilty that we had left Grandpa all alone on the reservation. So even after she married, my dad, who is a white man and teaches in the college in our city, oh, he's a prof. And after Cheryl and I were born, Mom made sure that every summer we spent a week with Grandpa. So Mom thought कि यार grandpa को अकेले नहीं छोड़ना है. Every summer the entire family used to go and stay with him. I never thought that grandpa would be lonely after our visits. Now the kid maybe does not have that sensitivity. So he never thought कि grandpa अकेले भी रहे होंगे वहाँ पे. And none of us noticed how old and weak he had become. But grandpa knew, and so he came to us. हमें नहीं पता था that he was lonely, but grandpa knew that he was feeling lonely, and hence he came to visit us. He had ridden on buses for 2.5 days. When he arrived in the city, tired and stiff from sitting for so long, he set out walking to find us. और पैदल चल के ढूंढना शुरू किया. He had stopped to rest on the steps of some building downtown, and a policeman found him. The cop, according to grandpa, was a good man who took him to the bus stop and waited until the bus came and told the driver to let grandpa out at Bellevue Drive. So probably policeman ने बात किया, where do you want to go? Grandpa explained it to him, and the policeman told the bus driver कि इनको यहाँ पे drop कर देना Bellevue Drive पे. After grandpa got off the bus, he started walking again, but he couldn't see the house numbers on the other side. Now, this is the street. If he's walking on this side, he could not see the house numbers on the other. And maybe that is the reason he started walking middle of the road. He walked on the sidewalks. So but he couldn't see the house numbers on the other side when he walked on the sidewalk. So he walked in the middle of the street. That's when all the little kids and dogs followed him. अब वो जो पहला scene था ना, that an old man walking in the middle of the street and dogs and kids yelling and barking and hollering. ये वहां से associate होता है. All right. I knew everybody felt as bad as I did. Yet, I was proud of this 86-year-old man who had never been away from the reservation, having the courage to travel so far alone. He was proud of his grandpa. I mean, don't forget that these kids had been telling exaggerated stories about their grandpa. So, now he's genuinely proud that this 86-year-old man, he made a journey he was not very sure of. You found the money in my boots, he asked mom. Martin did, she answered, and roused herself to scold. Grandpa, you shouldn't have carried so much money. What if someone had stolen it from you? डांट रही हैं grandpa को. Grandpa laughed. I would have known if anyone tried to take the boots off my feet. The money is what I have saved for a long time. $100 save किए हैं grandpa ने. For my funeral. किस लिए? For his funeral. But you take it now to buy groceries so that I won't be a burden to you while I am here. And he says, नहीं ये $100 रख लो so that you can buy groceries for me. I don't want to be a burden on your family. Oh, that won't be necessary, grandpa. Dad said. We are honored to have you with us and you will never be a burden. I am only sorry that we never thought to bring you home with us this summer and spare you the discomfort of a long trip. And Dad, being a very good man, he simply said, no, grandpa, we don't want that money. We are honored to have you here. And in fact, we are really, really sorry that we were not sensitive enough to your emotions and feelings. We should have brought you home along with us to spare you that long, arduous journey that you took all alone. Grandpa was pleased. Thank you, he answered. But do not feel bad that you didn't bring me with you, for I would not have come then. But don't feel bad. Even if you had asked me to come here, I would not have come. It was not the time. ये समय नहीं था. Remember, people with culture and heritage and all those things, they're very particular about things and when they are supposed to be done. So it was not the time. He said this in such a way that no one could argue with him. To Grandpa and the Sioux, he once told, a thing would be done when it was the right time to do it, and that's the way it was. Important line बेटा. ये सू के कल्चर में है कि वो काम तभी करेंगे जब उसका सही समय आएगा. Also, Grandpa went on looking at me. I have come because it is soon time for Martin to have the medicine bag. और समय आ गया है अब कि मार्टिन को मैं वो मेडिसिन बैग हैंड ओवर करता हूं. We all knew what that meant. Grandpa thought he was going to die and he had to follow the tradition of his family to pass the medicine bag, along with its history, to the oldest male child. Now, when he said the time has come to pass this to Martin, this kind of made them realize that grandpa was probably very, very, very old and he would not live for long. And grandpa realizes that. So he had made that trip to pass the medicine bag over to the oldest male child, which of course was Martin. Even though the boy, he said, still looking at me, bears a white man's name. Remember, Martin ke papa is a white man. Okay? Huh? White man's name, the medicine bag will be his. Or medicine bag usi ka hoga. I didn't know what to say. I had the same hot and cold feeling that I had when I first saw grandpa in the street. The medicine bag was the dirty leather pouch I had found around his neck. When he was undressing, taking off his coat and shirt and tie and everything, tab usko jo dikha tha. I could never wear such a thing. I almost said aloud. I thought of having my friends see it in gym classes, at the swimming pool, and could imagine the smart things, the comments, the taunts, the passes they would say. But I just swallowed hard and took a step forward toward the bed. I knew I would have to take it and wear it. But grandpa was tired. Not now, Martin, he said, waving his hand in dismissal. Not now. It is not time. Now I will sleep. Grandpa is very particular about his routine. Now I will sleep. He was, of course, very tired. So that's how grandpa came to be with us for 2 months. My friends kept asking to come see the old man, but I put them off. Friends को पता चला grandpa जो है वो आए हुए, तो they want इतना story सुन रखा था. They wanted to come and see him, but being the embarrassed one, Martin did not let them. I told myself that I didn't want them laughing at grandpa. But even as I made excuses, I knew it wasn't grandpa that I was afraid they'd laughed at. Nothing bothered Cheryl about bringing her friends to see grandpa. But sister को problem नहीं थी. वो अपने दोस्त लाई और grandpa से सब मिल रहे हैं. Every day after school started, vacations खत्म, school started, so every day after school started, there'd be a crew of giggling little girls or round-eyed little boys crowded around the old man on the पैशियो. तो जो जगह होती है बाहर, उस पे घेर के सब बैठते थे ग्रैंडपा को. Where he had gotten in the habit of sitting every afternoon. Grandpa would smile in his gentle way and patiently answer their questions. Or he would tell them stories of brave warriors, ghosts, animals, and the kids listened in awed silence. He had charmed those kids. बच्चे रोज आके उसकी जो है grandpa की कहानियां सुन रहे हैं. Those little guys thought grandpa was great. So those 10-year-olds, sister 10 साल की है तो बाकी बच्चे भी, they thought grandpa was great, amazing man with wonderful stories. Finally, one day after school, my friends came home with me because nothing I said stopped them. और एक दिन finally इस Martin के भी friends आ ही गए. We are going to see the great Indian of Bellevue Drive, said Hank, who was supposed to be my best friend. So Hank, best friend. My brother has seen him 3 times, so he ought to be well enough to see us. And now you cannot lie that he's not good enough, he's not well enough. My brother has seen him 3 times. Maybe brother was studying with the sister. तो वो तो 3 बार मिलके आ चुका है. And you are telling that he's not healthy or he's not well enough. No, we'll come and see him today. When we got to my house, grandpa was sitting on the patio. He had on his red shirt, but today he also wore a fringed leather vest that was decorated with beads. और शर्ट के ऊपर एक वेस्ट भी डाली हुई थी जो बीड से डेकोरेटेड थी. Instead of his usual cowboy boots, he had solidly beaded moccasins on his feet that stuck out of his black trousers. Moccasins पहने हुए थे, boots नहीं थे ऊपर तक के. Of course, he had his old black hat on. He was seldom without it. Seldom, बहुत कम, that he was found without his hat. But it had been brushed, and the feather in the beaded headband was proudly erect. When he was walking on the street, when he was coming from his journey, remember the feather was kind of drooping, but abhi wo सीधा. But it had been brushed, and the feather in the beaded headband was proudly erect, its tip a brighter white. His hair lay in silver strands over the red shirt collar. I started just as my friends did, and I heard one of them murmur, "Wow!" They were amazed just by looking at the old man. Grandpa looked up, and when his eyes met mine, they twinkled as if he were laughing inside. He nodded to me, and my face got all hot. I could tell that he had known all along. I was afraid he would embarrass me in front of my friends. And grandpa could guess that my grandchild is slightly embarrassed of me. He doesn't want his friends to meet me. "How? Hoka salas, boy?" Boys, he greeted and held out his hand. My buddies passed in a single file, एक line में लग गए वो फिर, and shook his hand as I introduced them. They were so polite, I almost laughed. I mean, your friends, with your parents, they are very, very, very polite. How there, Grandpa? And even, how do you do, sir? You look fine, Grandpa, I said, as the guys sat on the lawn chairs or on the patio floor. और फिर वो लोग दोस्त बैठ गए और grandpa का किस्सा कहानी शुरू. हाँ, yes, he agreed. When I woke up this morning, it seemed the right time to dress in the good clothes. I knew that my grandson would be bringing his friends. So grandpa कहते हैं, I just felt that you would bring your friends home. So I dressed up nicely. You guys want some lemonade or something? I offered. No one answered. They were listening to grandpa as he started telling how he had killed the deer from which his vest was made. जो वो beaded vest पहनी हुई है. He was telling the story कि कैसे मैंने deer को मारा और उसकी skin से बनाया. Grandpa did most of the talking while my friends were there. I was so proud of him and amazed at how respectfully quiet my buddies were. Mom had to chase them away home at supper time. जो evening food का time आया, तो उनको भगाना पड़ा. They were not leaving the house. They were so amazed at all those stories. As they left, they shook Grandpa's hand again and said to me, Martin, he's really great. Yeah, man, don't blame you for keeping him to yourself. Can we come back? And yes, आप जो छुपा के रखे हुए थे, we can't blame you. He's such a great man. You don't want to share him or his time with anybody else. But can we come back tomorrow? But after they left, Mom said, no more visitors for a while, Martin. Grandpa won't admit it, but his strength hasn't returned. He likes having company, but it tires him. Ab old hai, his body needs rest, his mind needs rest. When kids come along, he really enjoys it, but it drains him. So, no more visitors. That evening, Grandpa called me to his room before he went to sleep. Tomorrow, he said, when you come home, it will be time to give you the medicine back. And Grandpa says that tomorrow after school is the right time that I hand over the medicine back to you. I felt a hard squeeze from where my heart is supposed to be and was scared, but I answered, okay, Grandpa. Now why this hard squeeze in the heart? Because the passing over of the medicine bag signifies, of course, the passing of the culture, the heritage. It also tells Martin that Grandpa will not live much longer. तो वो जो सीने में दर्द उठा है वो इसलिए उठा है. All night I had weird dreams about thunder and lightning on a high hill. From a distance I heard the slow beat of a drum. When I woke up in the morning, I felt as if I hadn't slept at all. At school, it seemed as if the day would never end, and when it finally did, I ran home. And he's an emotional kid. Grandpa के काफी close है. और ये पता लगना कि grandpa बहुत दिन तक जिंदा नहीं रहेंगे. He just could not digest that. So, जैसे तैसे दिन कट रहा है, रात को सपने आ रहे हैं, nightmares आ रहे हैं actually. And after school, he runs to his house. Grandpa was in his room, sitting on the bed. The shades were down, and the shades, तो पर्दे हैं, they were down. And the place was dim and cool. I sat on the floor in front of Grandpa, but he didn't even look at me. After what seemed a long time, he spoke. Finally, he says, I sent your mother and sister away. मैंने sent your mom and sis away. What you will hear today is only for a man ears. तो patriarchy है, all right? Male dominated society probably वहाँ भी था उस टाइम पे. तो कह रहे हैं कि मैंने mom और sister को बाहर भेज दिया है. What I am going to tell you is only for the ears of a man, and no girl or lady should hear it. What you will receive is only for a man's hands. So जो मैं देने वाला हूँ, that is also only for a man's hands. He fell silent and I felt shivers down my back. और ये kind of an emotion of nervousness and excitement, sending shivers down his back. My father, in his early manhood, Grandpa began, made a vision quest to find a spirit guide for his life. But a vision quest, basically, it's a journey a man takes all alone to find the purpose of his life. So that he can just focus on what he was born to do. तो वो एक vision quest लेके कौन निकला? His grandpa's father. Grandpa's father. My father, in his early manhood, made a vision quest to find a spirit guide for his life. You cannot understand how it was in that time when the great Tatonsu were first made to stay on the reservation. And you can't imagine, I mean, the world has moved on. You've got technology coming in, you've got modern buildings coming in. You can't imagine what kind of life it was on the reservation. There was a strong need for guidance from Wakantanka. This is the great spirit. So, वो guidance के लिए निकले. But too many of the young men were filled with despair and hatred. Despair, hopelessness, and hatred. They thought it was hopeless to search for a vision when the glorious life was gone and only the hated confines of a reservation lay ahead. But my father held to the old ways. Now, most of the youngsters, they lost hope. They said, okay, now these guys have put a kind of confined us to this particular land that they call reservation, and the old golden days, the way that we lived, the way that our ancestors lived with full freedom probably is gone. But grandpa's father, he stuck to his guns. He held to the, but my father held to the old ways. Unka nahi yaar, I'll go for that vision quest. He carefully prepared for his quest with a purifying sweat bath, and then he went alone to a high bottle top to fast and pray. वो कहते नहीं कि ऐसे Gautam Buddha, he sat under that tree and got enlightenment. So something of that sort. He sat there to pray. After 3 days, he received his sacred dream, in which he found, after long searching, the white man's iron. In which, तो dream में उनको क्या मिला? White man का iron मिलता है. He did not understand his vision of finding something belonging to the white people. For in that time, they were the enemy. Don't forget the whites. They drove these people away from their own homeland and made a reservation patch and said, you stay here. So they were the enemies. When he came down from the butt to cleanse himself at the stream below, he found the remains of a campfire and the broken shell of an iron kettle. और जब वो 3-4 दिन बाद नीचे उतरे to kind of wash himself, he saw एक campfire जो लगभग बुझ चुका था और एक kettle का piece मिलता है उनको, broken shell of an iron kettle. This was a sign which reinforced his dream. White man's iron. So this was a sign that reinforced his dream. He took a piece of the iron for his medicine bag, which he had made of elk deer skin years before to prepare for his quest. और जो एक वो बैग बनाया था deer skin का quest की तैयारी में, उसमें उन्होंने एक वो metal का टुकड़ा ऐड कर दिया. He returned to his village, where he told his dream to the wise old men of the tribe. They gave him the name Iron Shell, but neither did they understand the meaning of the dream. नाम दे दिया iron shell का, but dream का meaning, जो interpretation of the dream, they could not interpret the dream. This first iron shell kept the piece of iron with him at all times and believed it gave him protection from the evils of those unhappy days. So iron shell, his father, grandpa's father, he kept this piece of iron with him at all times and believed that it gave him protection. Then a terrible thing happened to iron shell. He and several other young men were taken from their homes by the soldiers and sent far away to a white man's boarding school. और एक दिन क्या हुआ? They were all kind of rounded up and sent to a boarding school. He was angry and lonesome for his parents and the young girl he had wed before he was taken away. Now this was sheer brutality. Picking a young man and taking him away from his family. A newlywed wife, just imagine. At first, Iron Shell resisted the teacher's attempts to change him and he did not try to learn. Now, understand, Red Indians, Americans, they had their own culture and heritage. Now the whites are trying to change all that. तो उनको अपना तरीका सिखा रहे हैं, which of course the Indians will protest against. They will not be very happy in learning the ways, the whites' ways. One day it was his turn to work in the school's blacksmith shop. As he walked into the place, he knew that his medicine had brought him there to learn and work with the white man's iron. And now that interpretation of the dream is kind of getting easier. Now he realizes, okay, this is where my destiny is. I need to learn this, work as a blacksmith. Iron Shell became a blacksmith and worked at the trade when he returned to the reservation. और जब लौटे तो he worked as a blacksmith. All of his life he treasured the medicine bag. When he was old and I was a man, he gave it to me, for no one made the vision quest anymore. और अब कोई vision quest करता भी नहीं है, उस journey पे कोई निकलता भी नहीं है. That part of the tradition is long lost. So when I grew up and he was very old, he handed over the medicine bag to me. Grandpa quit talking and I stared in disbelief as he covered his face with his hands. His shoulders were shaking with quiet sobs. Grandpa started crying and I looked away until he began to speak again. Now Grandpa remembered his father and he got emotional and he started sobbing. So Martin, he kind of looked away, gave Grandpa the space, and finally when he spoke again, he looked back. I kept the bag until my son, your mother's father, was a man and had to leave us to fight in the war across the ocean. I gave him the bag, for I believed it would protect him in battle. But he did not take it with him. He was afraid that he would lose it. He died in a faraway place. Now this was to be handed over to the eldest male member of the family. Okay, so when he asked his mother's, Martin ki mother ke papa, okay, he refused. He went to fight the war and never, and he lost his life there. तो अब वो मेडिसिन बैग वापस ग्रैंडपा के पास आया हुआ है. अगेन ग्रैंडपा वॉज स्टिल एंड आई फेल्ट हिज ग्रीफ अराउंड मी. तो फादर को याद किया, सन को याद किया, एंड ग्रैंडपा इज ग्रोइंग इंक्रीजिंगली इमोशनल. माई सन, he went on after clearing his throat, had only a daughter and it is not proper for her to know of these things. Ab, your mom should not know because again it is a patriarchal kind of thing. So only a male should know about it. He unbuttoned his shirt, pulled out the leather pouch and lifted it over his head. निकाला उन्होंने अपने गले से. He held it in his hand, turning it over and over as if memorizing how it looked. In the bag, he said, as he opened it and removed two objects, is the broken shell of the iron kettle, जो इनके father को मिला था, a pebble from the butt, जहाँ पे वो ऊपर he went to fast and pray, and a piece of sacred sage, a plant. Okay. He held the pouch upside down and dust drifted down. After the bag is yours, you must put a piece of prairie sage within and never open it again until you pass it on to your son. उसमें एक और प्लांट आप ऐड करेंगे और तब तक नहीं खोलेंगे. मतलब never open it again until you pass it to your son. This kid is still very young. और पास ऑन करना है अपने, तब तक ये बैग नहीं खुलेगा. He replaced the pebble and the piece of iron and tied the bag. वापस रख के बैग टाई कर दिया. I stood up, somehow knowing I should. Grandpa slowly rose from the bed and stood upright in front of me, holding the bag before my face. I closed my eyes and waited for him to slip in over my head. But he spoke. Abhi, पहनाया नहीं, बोले, no, you need not wear it. Now that was the part of the embarrassment that Martin was worried about. कि यार बाहर दोस्त देखेंगे स्विमिंग पूल के टाइम पे, जिम के टाइम पे और हंसेंगे. तो grandpa said, no, you need not wear it. He placed the soft leather bag in my right hand and closed my other hand over it. It would not be right to wear it in this time. Now grandpa, a smart man, he realizes that these customs and traditions and part of the culture of modern times may probably they are not as glamorous or glorified as they were back then. So he said, no, you don't need to wear it in this time and place where no one will understand. Put it safely away until you are again on the reservation. जब वापस आना ना मेरे घर तो बेटा पहन के आना. Wear it then when you replace the sacred sage. Grandpa turned and sat again on the bed. Weirdly, being tired, he leaned his head against the pillow. Go, I will sleep now. Thank you, Grandpa, I said softly and left with the bag in my hands. और ये passing over of the medicine bag हो गया. That night, mom and dad took grandpa to hospital. Obviously, he passed that medicine bag to his grandson Martin because he realized that I will not live for long. 2 weeks later, I stood alone on the lonely prairie of the reservation and put the sacred sage in my medicine bag. और 2 हफ्ते बाद मैं रिजर्वेशन पे गया और जो प्लांट्स था उसको वापस बैग में रखा मैंने मेडिसिन के. Fantastic. Fantastic. How a child moves away from being embarrassed at how his grandpa looks, how he behaves, how he dresses, to simply being amazed at his personality and understanding the importance of passing over of the cultural heritage. The medicine bag. Critical appreciation. The medicine bag is a touching and meaningful short story that beautifully highlights the importance of cultural heritage, family values, and self-identity. Remember, Grandpa's father took a vision quest to find the purpose of his life. Virginia driving Hawksneve uses the relationship between Martin and his grandfather to show, in fact, great-grandfather, to show how tradition should be respected and preserved. The medicine bag serves as a powerful symbol of Native American culture, connecting the younger generation with its ancestral roots. Connecting the younger generation with its ancestral roots. The story is realistic, emotionally engaging, and rich in symbolism. Realistic hai, emotionally engaging hai, and it is rich in symbolism. Martin's transformation from embarrassment to pride makes the narrative inspiring and relatable. This is what I was talking about. Initially, he was embarrassed, and by the end, he was fully proud of his grandfather and his heritage. Through simple language, vivid, very graphic characterization, and an effective use of contrast, the author conveys the timeless message that respecting one's elders and embracing one's cultural identity are essential for preserving family heritage and personal values. You can use all this stuff in your answer writing, and that is why I keep saying get access to all the free material. By the way, character sketch. Martin, curious and imaginative, loves talking about his grandfather and Native American heritage. Exaggerated stories. Imagination, yeah. Embarrassed and insecure. Initially feels ashamed of his grandfather's traditional appearance. Respectful and caring. Looks after his grandfather during his illness. Thoughtful and mature. Gradually understands the importance of his family traditions. Very important. Proud of his heritage. Understand karta hai fir, he is proud, accepts the medicine bag as a symbol of his cultural identity and responsible, promises to preserve his ancestors' legacy. 2 weeks after grandpa passes away, Martin standing on the reservation, putting in the sage back into the bag. Grandpa, oh, wise and dignified, deeply respects Native American traditions and values. Loving and selfless, travels a long distance to pass the medicine back to Martin. Proud of his heritage, believes cultural traditions should be preserved. Patient and understanding, never blames Martin for his initial embarrassment. Although it was easy for him to figure that out, that Martin was embarrassed. Strong-willed, endures hardship to fulfill his responsibility. Travels for 2.5 days at the age of 86 to make sure he passes on the medicine back. Symbol of tradition, represents the wisdom, history, and culture of Lakota people. And of course, beta, these are the words that you ought to know the meaning of. So please make sure that you know it, because I keep saying the same thing. It's not about today. It's not about tomorrow. It's about a year or two from now when you'll be in the battle for those entrance exams. Tab vocabulary kill karti hai. All right. So let's prepare for that day as well. So please download, install, and get the free material access, and you get this PDF. You get all the words, and of course, all the paragraphs that you can use for your answer writing. Thank you. So